We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content tonight. And share the video with your family and friends. And if you want to support this channel through a super chat donation, hit the $sign with a comment. We'll get you a comment as soon as possible. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. PATC community. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. Welcome to PATC Late Night. You always have to keep your head on a swivel. I talk about it all the time. We could be doing a breakfast live show, a late night live show, a lunch, a dinner. We could be doing double headers, triple headers. Always got to keep your head on a swivel if you're going to be part of the PATC community, Peek Around the Corner community here in college football country. We're happy signing day today, everybody. Congratulations to all the high schoolers who signed, all the portal stuff. We have been covering the portal like crazy, the coaching carousel, and of course, we've been inside the Holy Smokes Theater. We've been telling you the leaks are happening. They keep happening because there's so much talk going on behind the curtain. We've been giving you the best, accurate peek around the corner there is in the business. Pete Thamel put out a big article tonight. Big article. We disagree with maybe one aspect to it, an important aspect to it. Now you're probably asking yourself, geez, the fat man from Minnesota, the fat guy from Minnesota is disagreeing with a major college football reporter again? Yes, on one part of it. On one part of the article. Respectfully, I might add. But most of this is what we've been talking about since December 26, 2022. And we've been picking this up, right? We have been, the momentum in our reporting on this, it had to follow the chatter. Just like we did with USC in the Big Ten when we broke that story, just like Colorado, Oregon, Washington. You know how we work. We poke and prod. We put out as much as we possibly can. Then we pull back at the last second, not to get in trouble with our sources. Tonight, Pete Thamel put out an article. It mentioned, we didn't have this information, but it mentioned the investment firm that Florida State looks like they're going to be in partnership with. And Weatherford, part of the Board of Trustees, he's been talking to other schools, trying to get them to do the same thing. There's a lot in this article, but I gotta say, now we've been calling it the first quarter 2024. We're going to stand by that, right? We've been saying that for 359 days. 359 days ago, we said the next 3 months, the story was going to get pushed even farther. Not a school saying that they're officially leaving the ACC, not saying where they're going to go. We never went over our ski tips. But the story's going to get pushed. It's going to be a big story here in the next 3 months. It's critical. Pete Thamel is telling you this. If you don't, listen, I get it. Fat guy from Minnesota. He knows absolutely nothing. Fine. Don't listen to us. Just watch us for entertainment purposes only. Watch me make a fool of myself with my picks against the spread. Watch me sing horribly every week on this channel. But just for, historical purposes only, what Pete Thamel just said here in this article, we've been reporting to you for 359 days. The next months are so critical. And I'm going to also be honest with you. Before we hit this Pete Thamel article, I don't know which way this is going to go. I don't know exactly what Florida State is going to say. We've been talking about they're going to put the flashlight down. They're going to point the flashlight, and they're going to tell everybody how they're going to proceed. Pete Thamel says this in the article. Everything in this article confirms what we've been reporting to you for 359 days. We said the next 3 months, the first quarter 2024. Look, there is one part of this, though. One part of Pete Thamel that we disagree on. And I feel pretty strong about our position here at Peek Around the Corner. And it has to do with Clemson. But we'll get into it. You can disagree with me in the chat, with the phone calls later in the show. I get it. Look, all these college football YouTube channels have been talking about signing day. Fantastic. Congratulations to the top 25 schools with your classes. Congratulations to the high school players. All that good stuff. It's the utmost important. It's a day of celebration for all the student athletes in high school working hard to get to this day where they sign a letter of intent to go to the school that they want to go to. So congratulations to the family, the parents, the student athletes, the schools, the fan bases, the collectives. We have one story that we're going to cover tonight, and that is Pete Thamel's article. First of all, I want to thank everybody. I'm going to try to get through it as fast as I possibly can. Everybody who's come into the chat at the beginning of the show, holy smokes. Michael Uten is in the house. Mr. Bruin is in the house. Holy smoke. Pure Mother, Mr. Bruin is in the house. James Foster, Gerald McKinley, Chad Bracey, Jeff Jorgensen, Cornelius Green, praise the Lord, Greg, early peak member, the Colorado Buffalo, late night action. Randy Taylor's in the house. Caden Dad is in the house. Ooh, I don't know about this. Terrapin D5 Terps brushed off the wife for this Flugs. Let's go. I don't know if that was a wise decision, Mr. Terrapin. Mr. Buckeye's in the house. Jared Jones, early peak member. Joe Z, PATC After Dark. I like that. I think you stole that from somebody. Early peak member Zay is in the house. KS Bear FN is in the house. Holy smokes. Matthew Carlson, the Evil Badger. The Evil Badger, Jeff Olson, is in the house. He went down to Iowa to put some money on some games, and he got absolutely smoked. Greg the Cooler has rubbed off on the Evil Badger, Jeff Olson. Marcus Wood from Iowa is in the house. Danielle's in the house. Ed the Cat TV. ECU Pirates is in the house. Becky Go Huskies is in the house. Oregon's off-season championship was clinched today. That's what I joke about Nebraska. I'm sure their off-season championship, they won it again today. Congratulations to the Cornhuskers. Sergeant Pickles is in the house. Richard L's in the house. Clinton Moses. Holy smokes. A lot of people came in early. It's late though, right? J.R. Kirkpatrick is in the house. Jamie Thornton, thank you for coming on in. Mrs. Razorback is in the house. Immaculate. Crab Cakes and Football. Cam and B. Rock Chalk. Rick Olson and Grant Creech, thank you for all coming in. Let's get to the story. Follow the rules. Cloak and Dagger. Late night. Follow the rules. A lot of Cloak and Dagger stuff going on here. I do have my Cloak and Dagger mug. As you can go to the merchandise store. There's a link provided. Go get yourself a mug. The holidays are closing in. 5 days away. Get yourself a mug. I do have Diet Cherry Coke in the mug to get me through this. We're going to be on as long as it takes tonight. As long as it takes. This is a big time article. This is big time. We told you the leaks were happening. It's like a sieve out there, okay? Everybody, reporters, I'm not saying anything off the beaten path here. Everybody is scrambling here. We're trying to figure it out. Look, I'm gonna give you a little bit of something right off the bat before we get to the article. Florida State Money Perch, the person who told us that the first quarter in 2024 is when Florida State was going to put the flag in the ground and declare what they were going to do next. And he said it all the way back in December 26, 2022. He said in the next 48 hours, the next couple days, so Thursday or Friday, there's going to be a posting. I should have checked before I went live here. There's going to be a posting on the Florida State Board of Trustees site for a new a Board of Trustees meeting. So keep checking that for the next 48 hours. Keep your head on a swivel. There should be a posting at the Board of Trustees Florida State website. Okay? We don't know the date of the meeting. We don't know if it's closed session. We don't know if it's public. We don't know squat except for it's going to be posted here in the next 48 hours. Yes, Go Noles, Florida State. We don't know the date. We don't know anything more than that. Okay. And it isn't going to, you know what? I'm going to leave it like that for now. Okay, let's get to it, guys and gals. What's next for Florida State in the ACC? This is Pete Thamel, ESPN. Pete Thamel, ESPN tonight. Now, we've had reports from The Athletic. We had reports from ESPN, Pete Thamel and Andrea Adelson. Then The Athletic came up with something, put out something today. Yahoo Sports put out a little bit. They're trying to get some meat to the bone on these reports. This report provided more meat. And then we're going to add on to it here tonight at Peek Around the Corner. It has been a year of bold talk for Florida State University. We'll find out soon if that talk dovetails into a historic legal challenge. We're going to find out soon, ladies and gentlemen. And we believe it's planned for the first quarter of 2024. And we've been saying that for 359 days. In February, Florida State officials, this is last February, put ACC on the alert. February 24th was the date, ladies and gentlemen. And our Florida State Money Perch told us December 26th it was going to happen in 2 months. And exactly what happened. In February, Florida State officials put the ACC on alert with athletic director Michael Alford declaring something has to change for Florida State to remain a consistent national contender despite the ACC's money gap when compared to the SEC and the Big Ten. In August, school president Richard McAuliffe said the school will very seriously consider leaving the league unless there were radical changes to the league's revenue distribution model. We all know that, right? Since the regular season ended, Florida State has been issuing scathing statements by officials at every level directed at the college football playoff. That includes Alford, calling the decision to exclude the undefeated Seminoles unforgivable. The lack of a playoff appearance appears to have Florida State officials refocused on the school's next big picture move. We disagree a little bit with that. Florida State has been following a plan. Have there been more phone calls because of the playoff snub? Sure. More passion? Sure. More energy? Sure. Maybe just a little bit more donations? Fundraising? Sure. But Florida State has been following a plan for months and months and months. So keep that in mind. ESPN's Andrea Adelson reported on Tuesday that sources have indicated renewed in-depth discussions about the Seminoles' long-term ACC future. While no board meeting has been called yet to formally discuss the bubbling issues, it would be counter to Florida State's own year-long rhetoric if one isn't called soon. We believe it's going to happen in the next 48 hours where it's going to be posted, scheduled for everybody to see. So again, keep your head on a swivel. ESPN has not reported on that. We are here at Peek Around the Corner. And that would set the stage for a legal standoff between Florida State and the ACC, which could be one of the highest stakes legal battles in college athletic history. There has been no known legal challenge to a grant of rights. A grant of rights agreement gives the conference full control over the school's media rights. The ACC currently owns all of the Florida State home games content to 2036, and that's what we've been reporting to you for 2 years, and before that on Twitter forever. The ACC owns Florida State's media rights, not ESPN. The first step would be Florida State's officially deciding on a declaratory action to legally challenge the ACC grant of rights. Yes, There's going to be a declaration. That's the first, that we've been using that word for 359 days. A declaration. This is the path forward. This is our intentions. And with that, we believe that Florida State is going to hope that they can reach a settlement with the ACC. But this is how we're going to legally challenge. This is what we are willing to do. That's the first step. And we believe it happens in the first quarter of 2024. Not an official withdrawal notice, like we've been saying for 359 days. Not a statement that we're going to the SEC or the Big Ten. The next step is a declaration. This would trigger the exploration of formally unwinding from the ACC without actually leaving the conference. Again, Pete Thamel of ESPN is confirming what we have reported to the PATC community. It's right there. Formally unwinding without actually leaving. This is important. This is what we have stated to you. It would do so to get a sense of what leaving could look like financially and legally. Yes. ACC, what are you going to do? How are we going to negotiate this? Are you willing to negotiate? What's the number? And if the number isn't good for us and Sixth Street Partners, then we'll go to take you to court. This is what is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. The stage is set. It is not as drastic as announcing an exit, but would signify the university is attempting to find a path. These are the words we've been using. These are the exact words that we've been using. According to sources, Florida State officials and lawyers have gone to the ACC's office at least a half a dozen times to dissect and analyze the legal language in the league's grant of rights. They are one of the many ACC programs that have done so, as copies are not permitted outside league offices. And while the move won't come with any other schools immediately joining, others are plotting a similar sequence. Explore the legal opportunities of unwinding from the grant of rights, which would likely take months, and then eventually leave the league if that's both financially tenable and there's a safe landing spot. Exactly what we've said. They have a good idea about the safe landing spot. They have a pretty good perceived notion of their valuation right now. But there's nothing done. There's nothing official behind the scenes. Nobody knows exactly how this is going to play out. Exactly what we've been reporting to you. They want to explore the legal opportunities. They want to push the ACC to a settlement. It's called brinkmanship. Others are plotting a similar sequence. Now, pretty soon here, we're going to get ESPN, Pete Thamel, and myself. We're going to separate on one particular issue here. We're going to get into the words. Back to the article. The words of Florida State's leadership in 2023 in the sports upheaval since Oklahoma and Texas began bolting the Big 12 for the SEC in the summer of 2021 have led to the critical upcoming crossroads. And while there won't be an immediate avalanche of programs that follow FSU, it could be the start of bad news coming for the ACC in drip, drip, drip fashion. We peek around the corner. We've been calling it the bull rush. You get more than one, you get a two. 2 is better than 1. 3 is better than 2. 4 is better than 3. Florida State, we're going to get to the part where we disagree with ESPN pretty soon. whether it's days or weeks, Florida State's Board of Trustees is expected to begin a formal vetting and discussion of what they found in the exploration of the grant of rights, whether it's in days or weeks. When that, when that Board of Trustees is posted, the next meeting, that's going to be your formal vetting and discussion on what they have found in how to legally battle the grant of rights. So we've gone through the options on this channel. We've been told information by the Money Perch. We're not going to go down into that rabbit hole tonight again, because we got a lot to cover here just by this. Okay? Here is what they will be considering with the landscape of college sports again hanging in the balance if and when FSU's actions meet their words. What happens next? An actual declaration of Florida State or any other ACC team leaving the league won't have to come until August 15th. That's the deadline for any school to withdraw to leave the league for the 2025-26 season. So the ACC, as we know it, will be intact for 2024-25. In many ways, any immediate action by Florida State or others to explore legally unwinding from the ACC grant of rights gives them a 6-month legal runway. That's the term we've been using. They want a longest runway as possible. And I got to tell you, there's more examples in this article. Pete Thamel doesn't know me from a hole in the wall, right? I've never spoken to Pete Thamel. But a lot of the same language is being used because, to be honest with you, peek around the corner, we're not ESPN. We're just the rebel outpost of college football. But we are fortunate to listen to some of the same chatter. So I think that's some of the reasons why there's the same language being used. And I'll leave it at that. ACC grant of rights gives them the 6-month legal runway before they actually have to make the decision to exit. Florida State isn't leaving tomorrow, correct, said a Florida State source. Who says they want to leave immediately? Nobody. They can't. They won't. Who says they are ever going to leave? Good question. Florida State obviously isn't the only program that has explored leaving. But they are expected to be the first to declare they're legally challenging the grant of rights per sources. Now remember, this declaration, this putting the spear in the ground has to be about legally challenging the grant of rights, because you're trying to get the ACC eventually to settle. So you obviously, when you're doing this, you have to say, when they put that spear in the ground, they have to say, we're gonna legally challenge. We believe we should be able to get out of the ACC. Okay? As Florida State's board chair Peter Collins told warchant.com over the summer, the grant of rights will not be the document that keeps us from taking action. Now, this is the part where ESPN and I, PATC, we disagree with each other. Or maybe we don't, but ESPN can't say it the way, I don't know. How long, back to the article, how long would they be alone, Florida State? Clemson has been the other school most vocal about the ACC's financial shortcomings. As athletic director Graham Neff has publicly acknowledged the magnitude of the ACC's finances compared to other leagues. The ACC has the third highest revenue distribution among major conferences, We'll skip that. We'll skip that paragraph. From there, Clemson and North Carolina are viewed as schools that could potentially follow. Neff said as recently as November that Clemson is very active in monitoring the realignment landscape. We just had an episode 2 days ago that says Clemson is active. They remain active. The leaks, we've told you all about it, how we're getting the information. They remain incredibly active. We talk with everybody, internally and externally, unapologetically, to continue to be well-positioned and well-read, Neff said in a news conference before the South Carolina game in late November. FSU would eventually have company as general counsels, board members, athletic officials, and presidents have been chatting about this with some urgency for well over a year. And in the last month, the chatter is extreme. And that's why we keep doing these live shows on this in the Holy Smokes Theater. It's been building up. Momentum has been building up. And people are leaking. People are leaking for all different reasons. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. Where would FSU go? As of now, there are really only two potential destinations. An invitation to the SEC or the Big Ten is not certain or imminent. We have peek around the corner. We're pretty positive on the invitation. But for Florida State. But the imminent part, no, it's not imminent. It isn't. And we've gone through it over and over for the last 359 days. The Big Ten and probably the SEC, but the Big Ten for certain is not going to get into any official talks until Florida State clears themselves from the grant of rights. They're not going to get any talks with Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia until they clear themselves from the grant of rights. Now, people have been talking. Third party, indirect. But not officially. The big boys haven't gone to the table. And it isn't like that yet. So all these reports that the school is going to declare they're going to the SEC in the next month and all that stuff, we've been telling you, we've been putting the brakes on this. That's not happening. The only certainty, now or down the road, is that neither league would want a hint of legal exposure. Again, we've been telling you that for 359 days. Also, the schools in those leagues aren't going to take less money for new members to join. That means there'd have to be some type of clear discount rate for any school before the leagues get formally involved. And that is what Clemson, I keep bringing up Clemson because this is a Florida State article. It involves the other school. I'm telling you, Clemson has done the work. Florida State has done the work. But Clemson they don't know exactly, but they know the range of the evaluation if and when they're able to clear from the grant of rights when it comes to SEC and the Big Ten. Even though they haven't had official talks, they kind of know the valuation. This is the work that's being done behind the scenes. Clemson has done the work. We'll get back to Clemson because that's the part where I disagree with Pete Thamel on in the article. One issue Florida State will have to overcome is the self-inflicted wounds from its own public behavior toward the ACC in recent months, especially McCullough's remarks this summer. They have made commissioners and presidents cringe as they envision that's what Florida State would be like as a league member. That's a headwind Florida State will have to overcome as it eventually courts other leagues. Nah, don't agree with that at all. That's no, we don't agree with that part at all. You know what? There's too much to this article for me to drill down on that. But let's just say PATC. Yes, Florida State's handled themselves quite differently than a Clemson, but I think most people would acknowledge that Florida State, somebody had to take the lead. The Seminoles did it. They did it with a little bit of a flair, more flair than what most would probably want, but that's not going to be held against Florida State. Anyways, back to the article. That said, it's naive to think in this era of conference contraction that neither of the Power 2 leagues would want to absorb a brand like Florida State in the next decade. So back to this, right? Florida State is wanted. Clemson is wanted. North Carolina is wanted. Virginia is wanted at the right price. Even Miami of Florida is wanted at the right price. But it remains tricky financially. Back to the article. As the Big Ten just jumped to 18 schools with the additions of Oregon and Washington at cut rates. That move is instructive in that they did not receive a pro rata share from the Big Ten, which is something any potentially departing ACC schools would face. Yeah, probably. Most likely. Especially in this bear market when it comes to the media company economy. So, the media market. So, yes, probably wouldn't come in as a full share. Any move to the SEC would receive pushback from in-state rival Florida, and its unlikely neighboring schools like Georgia and Auburn would want to give away the financial income edge they have in the SEC to a recruiting competitor. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Texas A&M didn't want Texas. Florida, probably not going to want Florida State. Georgia and Auburn, they're not going to want Florida State and Clemson. They're going to have to be convinced. Now, North Carolina, Virginia, that's a different example. We'll get to that in a moment. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, has expressed with sincerity his happiness at 16 teams. And perhaps the only way that changes in the near future for Florida State is in a defensive move. We talked about this at Peek Around the Corner. And maybe it isn't worth all that much to the SEC for Florida and other schools to take in Florida State. But to think about the Big Ten getting into Tallahassee, the defensive move might be the right move for the SEC. That gives a Florida State value to the SEC. That gives Clemson value to the SEC. Back to the article. Would the SEC really want a Big Ten flag planted so squarely in its backyard? Now, this is where we disagree with Pete Thamel. But there's no sign yet that the Big Ten covets Florida State in a significant way. We 100% disagree with Pete Thamel. There's no sign yet that the Big Ten covets. The Big Ten covets Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia. They would take on Clemson, depending on how the dominoes fall, depending on who's available, depending on who would take the certain rate that the Big Ten could offer, depending on who would want to become into a national conference instead of a regional conference. Do they want to go to the Big Ten network? Do they want a slice of ownership of a network? Or do they want to stay on ESPN family of networks? The Big Ten does covet Florida State. There is signs of that. This is, I don't know. I don't quite understand that sentence, to be honest with you. Brett McMurphy has mentioned Florida State as Big Ten being interested in them. We would agree. let me just put it this way, and then we'll get on back to the article. Florida State perceives, they have a perception that the Big Ten would be interested in them. And we believe at Peek Around the Corner that they have a very good reason to have that perception. We'll leave it at that. We also believe that the SEC is interested in Florida State for different reasons. Obviously. But yeah, there's no sign yet that the Big Ten covets Florida State. Boy, we got flashing signs all over the studio that the Big Ten covets Florida State. Anyways, back to the article. We can disagree. If you disagree in the chat or with phone calls later in the show, let me have it. Let me have it here at Peek Around the Corner. Back to the article. This could all unfold amid a distinct bear market in media for sports rights that industry sources say could make additional conference expansion unappealing to media partners. I would agree with that, to current media partners. The SEC might have to open up their ESPN family network families stations to maybe a different outlet if they want expansion to happen. Maybe the Big Ten's going to have to open their doors to a big streaming deal with Amazon to make more expansion happen. So why we agree with Pete Thamel, the current media partners, it may be a little bit unappealing because they have spent their wad. There might be opportunities for other media partners. Anyways, back to the article. Without new TV money coming in, any new members would likely need to join at a discount rate as Oregon and Washington did in the Big Ten. We agree on that. I know everybody would talk to when it comes to fans of those schools that are potential expansion candidates. They don't like to hear that, but that's probably the reality. Back to the article. The part that few are saying out loud about FSU is that, along with Clemson, are likely not the most coveted ACC schools in the eyes of the Big Ten and the SEC. Now, Pete Thamel, he has said this before, the part that few are saying out loud. I think everybody's saying this out loud. Everybody on ESPN is saying this out loud. Here at Peek Around the Corner, we've been saying this out loud. North Carolina is the biggest domino. Virginia is quite complicated. So is North Carolina. That could get complicated. But North Carolina is the biggest domino. But having said that, still, Florida State and Clemson has interest from both conferences for different reasons. Both of them, not one is mutually exclusive from the other. No, North Carolina, the biggest domino, but Florida State and Clemson, they are coveted by both SEC and the Big Ten. But both North Carolina and Virginia represent new markets and states for both leagues. They are also contiguous states, which the SEC has always valued. It's a competitive battlefield that allows one league to expand north to new markets and another to potentially go south. So for the SEC to get Virginia and North Carolina, they'd be going north. For the Big Ten, if they get North Carolina and Virginia, they would be heading south. While Virginia and North Carolina aren't in the same hemisphere as Clemson and Florida State in football, they do add robust new markets and fertile recruiting grounds for two competitive leagues and commissioners who want to capture those areas. That I would 100% agree. Absolutely. Clemson and FSU would be more of a defensive act by the SEC. North Carolina and Virginia would be an offensive act by the Big Ten. By the SEC, excuse me. Clemson and Florida State edition would be defensive for the SEC. an addition of Virginia and North Carolina would be offense. For the Big Ten, all 4 of those schools would be an offensive move. And that also includes Miami of Florida. How much would leaving cost? How would it be paid? Now here at Peek Around the Corner, for 359 days, we believe the first step is a declaration saying this is how we're going to legally challenge the Gore. We are willing to settle. What is that settlement number? We think it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, $300, $400 million. I know a lot of people in the chat disagree with me. That's fine. That's how we've been told. That's what we believe. Now we'll see what ESPN says. Eventually, leaving the ACC will be a costly proposition, and Florida State has already logged plenty of billable hours exploring the move. Ultimately, there have been some breadcrumbs left that private equity money would be used to fill in any financial gaps for Florida State. Breadcrumbs. Private equity money. The exit fee would cost Florida State in the neighborhood of $120 million. But the important aspect is that amount doesn't factor in the cost of unwinding from the grant of rights, hence the expected exploration here soon. So it's going to be 120. Probably, I would say 60% of that. Historically, an exit fee gets negotiated down to $80 million. So let's say $80 million, $100 million exit fee, but then it's going to cost more to get out of that grant of rights. That's what we believe. By signing the grant of rights, the ACC owns all of Florida State's home games. We talked about that. Legal predictions on a ruling are difficult. Part of FSU's legal challenge will be the fact that it willingly agreed to the terms of this deal 8 years ago. Even with the Florida State legal victory, there'd be some type of cost to get all that content back, or more likely, some type of settlement to avoid a protracted legal battle. This is what we believe will be the end. This is what Florida State is going to try to get to. But first, they have to declare what their legal battle is going to be like with the ACC. Tell the ACC, try to start negotiations on a settlement with the ACC. It might be in the ACC's interest to settle if they get enough money, right? If they get enough security. If there's one thing we've learned over the last generation, college presidents and athletic administrators aggressively avoid depositions and court appearances. So where would potentially hundreds of millions in cash come from? So ESPN also believe it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. Florida State is well down the road in securing private equity. This is the PATC money shot of the article. This is the PATC money shot of the article. Florida State is well down the road in securing private equity, if needed for any financial implications from a move. Sources told ESPN that Sixth Street Partners would be a likely partner for the Seminoles in private equity. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is so important. Let me finish out the next paragraph, and we'll circle back. Former Florida State quarterback Drew Weatherford, a Florida State trustees, has been actively engaging other schools about private equity in its role in the future of college athletics, per sources. He's a partner in a private equity firm. So, imagine, if you will, Florida State talking to Sixth Street Partners, going to have a partnership, ESPN's been told that they're well down the road in securing this private equity. Sixth Street Partners knows what this equity is for, giving some money to Florida State, taking some of whatever Florida State's product is going to give back to Sixth Street Partners for the next decade, 20 years, 30 years. They've been talking about it. There's some according to according to ESPN here, there's some traction. It looks like it's going to happen. It looks like Sixth Street Partners think it's a good deal for them to become partners of Florida State. And Florida State, the risk in the getting into a legal battle, the risk in all the money that's going to be spent on this when it comes to a settlement, the risk for Florida State drops down with a partnership with a Sixth Street Partners. As long as the deal doesn't, depending on the deal, obviously. But to me, this is the biggest news in the article. And if you think that Clemson hasn't done the work on this themselves, well, I would beg to differ. Florida State has ruled out independence as an option. The chatter about a handful of ACC schools breaking away to start their own league has faded. And we at Peek Around the Corner have never been a believer in the dissolution theory. We told you that honestly. We shot it to you straight. That's just not happening. So that leaves Florida State to wiggle out of a financial relationship with the ACC that it has cast as untenable. The ACC has made strides toward creating extra revenue for its programs. The additions of Stanford, Cal, and SMU at discount rate provided each incumbent program in the neighborhood of an extra $2 million annually per school. And then we're going to skip the next paragraph because basically it goes over what we've already talked about. An estimate of what Florida State would have earned this year from a success initiative is around $6 million. Now, again, that's just a drop in the bucket. When you're going to be $35 million behind the SEC and the Big Ten every single year. And then it gets bigger as the years go on. It gets bigger. The gap grows. It doesn't close, it grows. And for Florida State, a school that is determined to compete at the highest level of college football, college athletics, when we're going into the era of revenue sharing to the student athletes, this ain't going to cut it. This is a great year for Florida State. And they're going to get $6 million. They would have gotten $6 million more. It just doesn't. It doesn't. Now, back to the article. Could private equity offer Florida State a way to ease the financial burden of an option? A financial burden of an exit? That appears the most likely option. Who would follow Florida State? Who would follow Florida State? Now, this is where we disagree with ESPN on a little matter here. It's instructive to recall the three schools, that voted against ACC expansion this summer were Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina. With Florida State expected to formally explore options first, others in the league have spent plenty of billable hours in athletic department bandwidth doing the due diligence. And this is what we've been reporting to you, especially the last couple days. We have gotten information, leaked information, how active Clemson has been. Like, they have done everything. That's the little difference that we have with ESPN. We have Clemson, while Florida State might declare first, we have Clemson and Florida State at the center of the stage here in the Holy Smokes Theater for very, very good reason. Who would follow Florida State? With Florida State expected to formally explore options first, others in the league have spent plenty of billable hours and athletic department bandwidth doing the due diligence, but none appear as eager as Florida State to go so quickly. Reports earlier this year had pinned Clemson and Florida State in lockstep, but that doesn't appear to be how this would unfold. Clemson and North Carolina have been in close touch on this per sources. We agree with that. And they likely observe and then follow Florida State at some point. What we don't agree with this is we believe Clemson would follow very soon after Florida State. We don't think this is like Clemson going, this is interesting. Florida State first, but Clemson will soon follow. It's the North Carolina one that's going to have to take some time. We're going to get a little bit into North Carolina right after this article, and then we're going to get your comments and phone calls, and we're going to go as long as you want us to go tonight in this late night PATC. Clemson and North Carolina have been in close touch on this per sources, and they likely observe and then follow Florida State at some point. The timing of that might depend on both the legal read of what Florida State's doing and a snapshot of how difficult the path looks to follow them. So I think what that's about is, does Florida State have some unique argument to make when it comes to the legal battle breaking the ground of rights? We've talked about this. Do they have some sort of communication? Is there something between Florida State communication and the ACC when the Florida State was the last school to sign the extended grant of rights to go from 2016 to 2027 to 2036? It got extended from 2027 to 2036. Is there something unique to the Florida State attempt to say this is going to be our legal battle? But we have Peek Around the Corner, and we have very good reasons to believe this and report to you. I think we pretty much nailed everything else. You can take this with a grain of salt if you want, but we think Clemson is going to follow very soon after Florida State. Take that however you want it. North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham was critical of Florida State this summer, calling the public chatter about leaving the ACC barking. But there's also bottom line reality at UNC that it needs to look out for its best long-term interest, as it knows it is the most coveted brand not named Notre Dame that's not in the Power 2. North Carolina knows that. They're coveted by both. SEC, the Big Ten. The Tar Heels aren't going to stick around the ACC for sentimental reasons if a clean path to an upgrade is available. Complicating matters for North Carolina and potentially impacting timing is the departure of Chancellor Kevin Gesowich from Michigan State in recent weeks. Now, you know here, Peek Around the Corner, we have covered the North Carolina story like nobody's business. Right? We have covered that. We've got the lay of the land. If you've missed it, go back to our live shows here in the last week. ESPN does not go into details on this. It is a complicated matter for North Carolina. They're not aligned like Clemson and Florida State. There are different factions in North Carolina Board of Governors. There's just different factions. The battle is being waged right now at North Carolina for the future of where they're going to go, what type of school they're going to be, all that stuff. It's a big rock fight, and it was happening under Kevin Gesowich, and it's going to continue on here. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole tonight. We've been through it. Okay. While Neff has been Clemson-centric in his comments and generally positive about the ACC, He's been consistent in indicating that Clemson's options are open. The school has hired outside consultants and have taken the obligatory trips to the ACC headquarters for grant rights exploration. Now, we've been telling you Clemson has been incredibly active, even recently here. So, anyways, Miami certainly falls in line with the financially aggrieved in the ACC, but it doesn't appear poised for any immediate action. Virginia has done modest exploration, but is not as far down the road as some of the ACC schools. That's exactly what we said, I think, yesterday in our live show. They're not far down the road. Same terminology. Schools like North Carolina State and Virginia Tech have had all the discussions, but the available spots on the Power 2 dance card are clearly limited. Virginia Tech and North Carolina State, their chances of getting on the dance card to get into a landing spot in the SEC and the Big Ten has to do with the politics of the state they reside in. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. We've been going down it. We're going to continue to go down it. I told you you're going to be seeing articles about Virginia Tech real soon. There was a proposal in October, the North Carolina Board of Governors, when it comes to North Carolina, if they decide to change conference affiliations, they're going to have to present a plan, a financial plan on how to get out of the ACC. And that proposal that was put forth in October would have to include the UNC system president, Peter Hans. He would have to look at North Carolina's plan. Oh, and by the way, Peter Hans is the system president that not only includes North Carolina, but North Carolina State. We've gone through that. We're not going to go through it tonight, but just to let you know, we're on top of every part of this story. And finally, at the end of the article, any notion of an immediate demise of the ACC would be exaggerated. Again, we agree, and we have been saying this. We've been reporting this. But it's clear that the league's biggest football brands, Clemson and Florida State, and the biggest overall brands, lack faith in the league having the financial fundamentals to be an incubator for championship football for the long term. And that makes the upcoming months critical for how the league will look in the future. And that is Pete Thamel's brilliant writing. He said it a lot better than I could ever have in the last 359 days. Florida State and Clemson lack faith in the league having financial fundamentals. I mean, good Lord, look at the financial gap the next 13 years, and it's going to grow the last 4 or 5 of the last 13 years, the last 4 or 5 years, more than $35 million a year. They lack faith in the league having the financial fundamentals to be an incubator for championship football for the long term. This year, sure. Next year, yeah. Next couple years, sure. But in the long term, the next 10 years from now, And finally, this article ends, and that makes the upcoming months critical for how the league will look in the future. The upcoming months. The upcoming months. The upcoming months. First quarter of 2024. Is the ACC going to collapse in the first quarter of 2024? No. Is Florida State going to declare that they're leaving the conference in the first quarter of 2024? We don't believe so. No. Is Florida State going to declare that they're going to end up in the Big Ten or the SEC or some other conference? No. Not in the first quarter of 2024. What we have believed and we have reported to you for 359 days, and it's all heading up, it's all going in that direction, is that there's going to be a declaration. This is Florida State's battle, their legal battle. And they're going to be up for, willing to do a settlement, starting negotiations with the ACC. And Clemson is going to be soon to follow. Even though ESPN may not believe that, we believe it. We have reasons to believe it. And that's what we've been reporting to you. So I'm going to get to your comments, to your phone calls. Let me get to the comments right. First of all, Super Chat. We'll get to your phone calls as soon as possible. We had to do this late night show. Ryan Willie, what do you think of Michigan's news today that the notes of allegations per ESPN? Don't think much of it. They were going to get the notice of allegations at some point. They got it. I believe they have 90 days to respond to the NCAA. It's kind of interesting that they got it today on early signing day, December 20th. But other than that, I haven't really thought much of it. They were going to get it at some point. Don't think it's the biggest deal, really. They were going to get it. They got it. Ryan Willie, thank you so much for your super chat. I do appreciate your continued generosity to our program. Okay. Wow. There's a lot of comments. Again, if you want me to get to your comment, hit the $sign with the super chat. We had to do this late night show. We sort of, I know at the end of last week we said, boy, next week's going to be a busy week. And here we are. It's been a busy week. The chatter is overflowing. Again, Florida State Money Perch told us next 48 hours, there's going to be a posting on the Board of Trustees website of Florida State, and it's going to be a scheduled meeting. We don't have any more information than that, unfortunately. We don't know if it's going to be a closed session. It's got to be a closed session. I mean, right? I can't believe it would be an open session. I think it's going to be a closed session, then maybe they open up to the public again. But yeah, it's going to pop up on the board there on their website in the next 48 hours. All right, let's just open up the phone lines. I'll try to get to some of your comments here. Holy smokes. Okay. Phone lines are now open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Pete Thamel gave us new information today.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. I was just saying, Ryan, before you take the stage, there was a lot of new information here. One of them is he named the private equity firm. He named it. He named it. There's a lot of... Okay, so when you name something like that, you know, Ryan, there's a lot of extra information around that name, right? He's got to confirm. They know they're long ways down the road. Both parties are interested. They've been talking for a long time. So has Clemson with others. What I'm saying is this story is further down the road than what Pete Thamel has put it out there. Okay? Ryan, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
Well, the Go for Santa Claus is bringing realignment presents. So if you remember my call a few days ago, I said that at the beginning of 2024, I think the big announcement is going to be some sort of partnership with private equity.
Yeah, you did.
And I don't think it's just limited to FSU.
No.
And let me just give you a little bit of background on me.
Yes, yeah.
A little bit of background on me, Greg. So I deal with the U.S. tax laws and rules as they relate to companies and businesses and individuals.
And by the way, Ryan, I apologize for interrupting you. I'm going to give everybody about 6 minutes of phone call because I think we're going to get a lot of phone calls. Just so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it gets to about 5, I'm telling everybody, not you, Ryan. When we get to about 5 minutes and 30 seconds, I'm going to give everybody a 30-second warning. Okay. For tonight only.
Fair.
For tonight only. Ryan, go ahead.
That's fair. But anyway, like I said, I deal with this stuff, and a lot of investments made by venture capitalists and private equity are basically in foreign investment opportunities in emerging markets throughout the world. My point in being that is I've worked a lot with private equity firms in my career, and I've dealt a lot with them. And when they go into this type of relationship, Craig, it's not just with one. They make several different portfolios, and I can tell you to them a collection of brands like FSU, North Carolina, and Clemson are probably 3 brands that they would feel very positive about, and they could probably spot them, $300 or $400 million a piece, or even more, and in exchange get some sort of profits interest in merchandising and royalties or something over the next 25 years, which is probably what's going to happen. But what I'm saying is, I think that I would not be surprised if there's at least 3 on board with the Sixth Street Capital, and I wouldn't be surprised if more get on board. I'll leave this final thought. Whether or not the ACC survives or not, all depends on what Notre Dame decides to do. So if there are 4 to 6, if there are 6 defections, and Notre Dame decides that it's just going to, call it quits and join the Big Ten, or do something else, or do the Ivy League partnership that Immaculate's talked about. It's all up to Notre Dame. Notre Dame at that point is the thumbs up or thumbs down on the ACC, and that's going to be kind of what drives the whole thing, and it'll be interesting to see. But that's all I got, Greg. Have a good night.
You got it. I appreciate it. Great call, Ryan. You did call it, though. You said you thought the private equity announcement would be coming in the first quarter of 2024, and I think we're going to see it here. Great call. Thank you so much, Mr. Ryan. Don't. So yeah, there's things that we learned here. Florida State, Sixth Street partner.
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie Thornton, the floor is yours. We're giving everybody 6 minutes. At 5 minutes and 30 seconds, we'll give you a 30-second warning. Thanks for calling.
I won't need that much time. Yeah, I won't need that much time, Greg. First, Wu Pig Suey, of course. But, yeah, we're kind of seeing a pattern here, right? Like we've seen with Colorado, and we saw with the Big 12 and the Pac-12. I mean, obviously things are heating up, and
Yes, they
you
are.
talked about that.
Yes, they are.
And because the story is all together, I mean, it's obvious that FSU, Clemson, and North Carolina are linked. So after your thing last week going on about North Carolina, I reached out and finally got to hear yesterday back from Tim Donnelly. Now, a lot of people might not know who he is. He's a radio host there in Raleigh-Durham with ESPN The Fan, and he's one of those guys that is definitely there's that faction that want North Carolina, of course, to stay in the ACC. But one of the things that even he was telling me is that now at this point, it's pretty evident that North Carolina is not going to be left out. They're not going to be staying in the ACC, which I think we obviously all know. But the SEC thing is so real that the heat is there. Everything pretty much that you were saying, and this is just something to think about, to consider when people talk about North Carolina and why are they so valuable. That state has a lot of growing large media markets in it. North Carolina owns the state, and it's one of those places that has a lot of markets that doesn't have either the SEC or the Big Ten in it. And I can just tell you from what he told me right now that not only is that huge, not only is there a war being fought, because obviously you have really the SEC has all their territory, right? There's
Yeah.
no Big Ten in the SEC right now. There's no SEC in the Big Ten. This is one of the last big battlegrounds. And he told me, he says, I'm just telling you, right now, he said, definitely from his feeling, it's SEC. It's like you just said in your thing.
Yeah.
And this is coming from somebody that's there. But he said this. He goes, I can almost guarantee you that North Carolina will not come alone to the SEC. I think the SEC is going to try to hope that they can that they will take two. And he said, obviously, NC State was the favorite, but he goes, don't. And the same thing I heard from Chris on this. He says, do not count out Duke. Do not count out Duke to possibly come with North Carolina to the SEC. Now, he's saying obviously the same thing. Big Ten's still in play, but I just wanted to give that information. This is coming from, a guy here on Tar Heel Road or Tobacco Road, and people that don't understand the importance of that, getting that Big Ten network, getting that SEC network into all the homes on that state is huge. So, obviously FSU, man, I mean, they're determined. Right now, I think they're just so ticked off. All they can think about right now at this point is making it happen to get out of the ACC.
Yeah.
And like you said, what happens between the either the Big Ten or the SEC, even though obviously the preferred choice is the Big Ten, I believe without a doubt. I really do believe that's where they'll go. But with the complications of Virginia and Virginia Tech, I don't know. I don't know if they'll even – the SEC tends to expand at 2 teams at a time. Yeah. That's right now where I think they'll sit. I think the SEC will take 2 North Carolina schools, and we'll see what happens if they can get them. If they can get UNC, they'll take 2 of them and stay at 18 for now.
Okay. Beautiful, Jamie.
There you go. We'll pick Suey.
Thank you, Miss Arkansas. Appreciate your phone call.
Thanks, Greg.
Beautiful. Beautiful call. All right.
Call from
Lewis, can you hold on 1 second, sir?
Sure.
I appreciate it. David Hackett, I appreciate you becoming an early peak member. Thank you so very much. We did drop episode number 11 for early peak members. Episode 11, so take a good look at it, David Hackett. You'll be able to watch it now. It was something that we wanted to drop about 96 hours ago, but we couldn't, but not until this morning. It doesn't have to do with the ACC. It has to do with another conference. David Hackett, thank you so much. You are now knighted, cloak and dagger style. Thank you, David Hackett, for becoming an early peak member. Lewis, Mr. Blue Devil, how you doing, sir? The floor is yours.
Well, doing pretty good. I'm in New York, Big Apple tonight.
Oh, okay.
Taylor came, and it occurred to me, that was out of my mind about whether or not Duke.
We're having a hard time with your phone, Lewis.
Oh, sorry. Let me see. Is it any better now?
Yeah, that's better. Good.
Okay. Well, there was some doubts in my mind about whether Duke would opt in when they were talking about the subdivision because Duke is still a university. But I feel pretty good that Duke's going to opt into whatever happens.
Sure.
Because Baylor had some fans there, but Duke for decades now is able to bring 18,000 people into Madison Square Garden on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And it's just a huge draw. And it's not football money, but it's still a brand that they can drop into just about anywhere in the country and play somebody, and people show up.
Yes, sir.
And so, and also just in talking to some people, Duke had a great pregame event. I got to meet Coach Diaz, who I think is a great fit for the university and for the program, that they're ready to roll. Duke's going to invest the money and do what they have to do to stay competitive. I still don't see prior caller talking about the SEC. I can't imagine that would be the case. But Duke's going to do all they can, and I don't think Carolina will be loyal to Duke, although it will hurt the rivalry significantly if Duke and Carolina don't play. I just don't think that's all that important. But with that said, it was a tremendous evening and an interesting time, one that I look forward to seeing whatever happens happen.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. There's a lot of crazy rumors. it's a lot of this you just don't recognize. It's amazing how incredibly different college football was from 5 years ago, but
Yes.
you have to roll with the punches and move on. But certainly tonight on the basketball court, it was great to see, and also look forward to seeing what happens with the bowl games, because those bowl games, while there are too many of them, still draw ratings, and so
Yeah, they still make money.
They still
make
do.
money.
I mean, the LA Bowl drew as much as the big basketball game between Carolina and Kentucky. So have a great holiday, have a great Christmas. If I don't speak to you in the PATC community, and we'll look forward to seeing what happens in 2024.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lewis. Legendary caller, a legend, Lewis. I love me some Lewis. Duke Blue Devil. Beautiful. Excellent. Ryan Willie, thank you for the super chat. If the ACC implodes, I don't think it makes sense for Notre Dame to stay independent. Notre Dame and the Big Ten have the NBC connection. If the ACC implodes, if they lose their top brands, or at least the top couple football brands, that Notre Dame scheduling, that 5-game scheduling with the ACC, that takes a hit. So is that schedule worth the money that NBC is paying for Notre Dame, which we still haven't seen in public what that money is. Interesting times. If the ACC implodes, and we think it's going to happen within the next 3 years, that has to affect Notre Dame once again. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for your great generosity to this channel. Appreciate you so very much. Thank you. Let's get back. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. So, new information was dropped in this article. Pete Thamel felt confident enough to name the private equity firm that Florida State is well down the road on. And when you see that information, that means he's gotten confirmation of it. They're well down the road. They both are looking at this partnership in a positive manner. It means that the private equity firm looks at Florida State, the brand, as a winner, right?
Call from
Bruce.
Bruce, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling.
Hey, is this Greg?
Yes, how are you doing, sir?
Good. Hey, this is Bruce. I just want to let you know I graduated from Bowling Green, and I'm looking forward to this bowl game in a couple of days.
Yes. I'm going to be on an Alabama radio program at 11:15 Central Time tomorrow with Stephen Ray. Do you know who Stephen Ray is? There's people in the chat.
No, I did.
I'm going to be on his radio program talking about the Bowling Green, Minnesota bowl game coming up on December 26th. So what's your feelings on that game?
Well, I was just, I guess you're screening my call here. I was just going to give Greg a little grief over it. Nothing, not a big deal. I was just going to rib him a little bit. This is a rubber game. Bowling Green and Minnesota are 2-2 against each other.
Yeah.
So.
I think you know what? I think Minnesota might be in a little bit of trouble. We're starting a quarterback that's never started a game. He's getting married in February. He's going to retire from football.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I knew there was a new quarterback, but I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and the backup quarterback to him is a redshirt true freshman walk-on, Max Chickenjansky, who's the son of a Chickenjansky, who was a basketball player back in the 80s that I love watching for the Gophers. Anyways, Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, we may have Darius Taylor back, a great running back who's been injured most of the year. It sounds like he's going to be back. If he's back, we're going to have to give him the rock 25, 30 times to be able to score in Bowling Green because I don't know where we're going to get our offense.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I went to school at Bowling Green. I'm an Ohio State fan. I grew up in Ohio.
Okay.
Obviously, there's a big difference. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think Bowling Green's going to win this game.
Very, very well.
We lost a couple guys to the portal, but overall, I think it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
We're not a bad team.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Like,
and I think.
Yep. Go ahead.
Being a MAC team and a Big Ten team, there's a big difference from motivation point in a bowl game. I know it's not playoffs and it's kind of like meaningless, but
yeah,
MAC schools that it's like, oh, we're playing a Big Ten team.
Yeah,
it's time to show up.
Yeah,
and a Big Ten team's like, we're playing a MAC team in a bowl game in Detroit. Like, I probably wouldn't be super excited about that either. So I kind of think that will make a little bit of a difference.
Well, yeah, but you're right. I'm hoping though, Minnesota Golden Gophers are going to be playing a lot of freshmen, especially on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. So they should be excited to play. I mean, they should take this as something very serious. So I'm hoping, and PJ Fleck, as a Gophers coach, he's 4-0 in bowl games. He takes bowl games very seriously.
Is he? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, 4-0.
I like that guy. He takes a lot of crap, but I like that guy. He's done a good job in Minnesota.
He's done a very good job. They take the spring games very, very seriously. The Gophers spring football game is most like a real game than any other team out there. Tackling and everything, time, the scoring's the same. So he takes this stuff seriously. So they should take it seriously. But on the other hand, we don't have the horses in the secondary. Bowling Green, I don't know. It's going to be a tight game. Let's put it that way. It's going to be a tight game. The line's 4.5 points. So,
is it Minnesota's favorite?
Yeah, I think so. 4.5. I don't think it's moved much. Yeah, I mean, we're playing a quarterback who has the only action he's like a fifth year senior, right? The only action he's ever had on the field is do a few wildcat plays. So he's going to play the whole game. So we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be fun, I think.
He's a fifth year senior and he's never transferred.
No, he's from Minnesota.
I think that's pretty cool,
cousin,
actually.
His cousin is Carter Coughlin, who ended up he's playing for the New York Giants, big defensive end. His family has played for the Gophers. He has an uncle or a great uncle who was a legendary former Gopher player. So yeah, it's one of those.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah,
because it'd be easy, especially now, to just transfer and I'm going to go play D2 or a MAC school and play and stuff. But
and he's getting married.
You don't play for your school.
He's getting married in February. So he was done. But then Athen Calamanis went in the portal.
Is this the guy they threw? Is this the guy they threw like $30,000?
It wasn't $30,000. He did get some money to play in this bowl game, but it wasn't $30,000.
Okay. I thought something about that, and I thought
not really close to $30,000. So, but whatever money he got, he's going to be spending on his honeymoon. So
good for him.
Yeah,
I like that. I don't know if you remember, there was a guy from Ohio State named Kenny Guyton who sat behind. Remember JT Barrett? the
Yeah,
quarterback from Ohio
you got
State.
30 more seconds, Bruce. We're having a limit today on the call. It's just a warning, 30-second warning. Yeah, I do remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bear was there for like 57 years or something. Guyton basically sat on the bench, but he'd get in play. But he's an Ohio State guy, so everybody loved him.
Yeah.
And he was good. He was decent. I think he's coaching. He's an assistant coach somewhere in the NFL now, or in college.
Yeah.
Somewhere. I can't remember where he is at. But I like guys that stay.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
All righty, sir. Appreciate the phone call, Bruce.
All right. Thank you.
You got it. Beautiful. Great phone call. Bowling Green. So phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. So new information in this article. Pete Thamel felt comfortable enough to name a private. Every time I get to that point, there's a phone call. That's great, though. That's what we want.
Call from
Attorney Dave.
I'm sorry, did not get the name.
Attorney Dave.
Oh, Attorney Dave is on the line. Holy smokes. What's going on, sir? The floor is yours. What are you thinking? Private equity firm, legal battle, trying to get a settlement, brinkmanship. Attorney Dave, let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, Greg, I was, so this declaratory action that they're talking about, specifically, these deck actions is what they're sort of colloquially known as. Basically, you're asking the court you're basically filing a lawsuit. You're asking the court not for any damages, but just for the court to let you know whether you have a case. And so the court then takes into consideration, so you are filing a lawsuit. So they're saying Florida State is talking about they're talking about filing a lawsuit in North Carolina, I would presume at this point, about the grant of rights. And the lawsuit wouldn't be for any damages or any money. It would just be for the court to let them know basically whether they have a case or not.
Okay.
And so, and that would, it would be, the same type of discovery, same type of things that you would typically have in a lawsuit. There just isn't any money at stake initially. So FSU is not looking for money. They're just looking for the court to say, oh, actually, you would have the right, or the ACC could bring a deck action, hypothetically, and say, hey, we want to just prove that we have a substantial grant of rights that's contractually obligating them. So it's an interesting move because it's basically starting the ball ongoing, like you were talking about, and would start to crystallize what they're actually dealing with. So then what I'm hearing then is they'll figure out, okay, well, do we have an action that, real way out of this thing? Was the court going to uphold this thing? Is that going to create more brinksmanship like we were talking about, where they're not going to want to go through discovery, or there's going to be, some deterrence to that in that way? And then if they get, oh, well, we lost, then it seems like their only route out is then to go to that private equity firm like we were talking about and get that private equity, and then, figure out a way to make the numbers work long term. But it's interesting because they're basically going to, go on the offensive at this point and say, one way or another, we want to figure out whether this grant of rights is going to hold us in here. If it's going to hold us in here, then, we want to know now. From there, the only thing that's interesting about it, and something we've talked about in the past, is that the ACC doesn't, even if the grant of rights still holds, the ACC does not have to release Florida State just because they offer them a bunch of money. That's the one thing that's interesting about it.
That's the number one reason why I think it's going to take a whole lot of money to get this negotiated, to get a settlement. Because you're right. The ACC still won't have to. how I'm looking at this, Attorney Dave, at the end of the road, this is a long road, right? And we're finally gone down a few blocks of the road here, right? But at the very end of the road, there's going to be some ACC schools that are going to have to be satisfied. Forget about ESPN. Forget about the lawyers, the coaches, da-da-da-da. At the end of the long road, there's going to be some ACC schools that are going to have to be incentivized to say to Jim Phillips, yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, let's do it. Make a deal. Let Florida State go. They're going to be gone in 2036 anyways, right? They're going to be gone in 2000. They're not going to be, after 13 years of being $35+ million behind every year, they're not going to stay after 2036. But you know what? It's better for us for them to leave in 2026 instead of 2036 because, guess what? Wake Forest gets the bag $150 million from, or whatever, right? Like,
that's right.
And we get security, and we get to keep a network, and we get to keep autonomy status. And so at the end of the day, at the end of the road, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Boston College, a few other ACC schools have to be satisfied with the deal, incentivized to make the deal. And that could push Jim Phillips to say, okay, we'll make the deal. Am I off the beaten path or?
No, you're 100% right. I mean, that's what, I feel like when you originally started really talking about this whole situation with FSU, we had a similar conversation about this, and you're right. The other side of the coin is they have to figure out a way to keep the conference together, and you saw it in Thamel's article how, Clemson, North Carolina, and Virginia, and Miami, and all these schools are looking to see what's going to happen. And that might be the incentive for the ACC to really fight this, and for them to say, or you need to give us so much money that it's going to be insurmountable for a lot of other folks to want to get out.
Yeah.
Or at least schools that that would be borderline would say, that's too much money for us to be able to, or the risk of getting into the Big Ten or the SEC. And the unknown of that creates too much of a deterrence to want to leave, because otherwise, then you're gonna have a free for all. So it's a pretty fascinating situation. As the article says, there's no precedent for these grant of rights themselves, other than the fact that Texas and Oklahoma didn't really test it and just waited the several year period until, like you said, they were able to negotiate a settlement that both sides could agree to, because there's only a year left on the grant of rights. So this is going to be one to watch. But basically, what Sam was saying is that Florida State's going to file a lawsuit, and I mean, again, all this stuff is public ultimately, not the depositions initially, but if they file them in public as part of motions and things like that, all those things eventually will become public. These things are going to get leaked. You're talking about a messy situation that'll erupt, and Florida State's going to, what Thamel's saying is that they're going to be the ones that file this deck action and force everyone's hand to try to figure out what this grant of rights says, and whether whether it is as ironclad as they think, and as what people have said. And this will be a messy situation that, as I think I told you in the past, it's one that a lot of folks want to get in the lawsuits, but somewhere in the middle of it, everyone's wondering, how do we get out of this thing? And so maybe, and that's part of it too, is potentially how do we get out of this thing and everybody walk away happy, like you're talking about. But that's what you're looking at. So buckle up, because it's about to go.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate it, Trinity Dave. Love Thanks, the phone call.
Appreciate it.
Call us again, please, during this mess, okay? All right.
Will do.
Thank you. Beautiful call. Tough Tony. Gopher signing day class. What do you think? Supposedly it was the highest rated class under PJ Fleck. They got a couple offensive linemen. They've got 4 guys who are going to go to the All-American game. That's the most ever in Gopher history. So pretty good day by P.J. Fleck. The superstar, of course, is Coy Pirich. Pirich is a safety he's almost a can't miss. I mean, I know that's dangerous to say, but he's like the third-rated safety on 3 recruiting. He's like the third-rated, highest-rated safety in the country. Watch his tape. I don't know. I think he's going to be an absolute superstar. Hopefully the Gophers can keep him again after his true freshman season. Hopefully we play him enough and, he likes it and everything, and he's making enough NIL money to stay for 3 years. Drake Lindsey, the quarterback from Arkansas, we talked about it. He was a late bloomer, had a monster senior season. Won all type of awards, won the state championship in Arkansas. Bobby Petrino, the offensive coordinator, newly hired offensive coordinator for Arkansas Razorback, did a late run at him, but Lindsey's decided to stay with Minnesota. His grandfather used to play for the Vikings, running back. I'm happy with it, especially after the season we had.
Call from
Crab cakes and football.
Crab cakes and football. I know Maryland did at least one big flip today. How you doing, Mr. Terrapin? The floor is yours.
We had 2 good flips today.
Okay.
I forget the name of the second guy. Now, we're still waiting on the big fish, but I don't really think we're going to get them. But if we do get them, that'd be major. But I heard your monologue, and I've been listening and everything. I know I only got 6 minutes, so I'll try to make this fast as possible.
Got it.
Okay, long play here, because obviously this isn't going to be happening in the next year. I mean, whenever they finally break free of everything, start moving conferences and everything. Am I hearing it like probably the earliest is like 26, maybe even 27? I mean, are we talking that kind of?
That's what I think, yes. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, too. So I know right now everybody has their eyes on the big prize in North Carolina. Then, of course, you throw in Clemson and FSU, and everybody has their picks of who they want. What I ultimately think happens is in 27, when the numbers are down to where everybody can pay everything off, and people get out from the gore and pay off and this and that and the other, I think the SEC will eat first, and I think they'll go after North Carolina and probably get them. And if they do get NC State, I think they'll be done because of the Virginia Tech link deal. And I think at that moment, and only at that moment, I think the Big Ten looks to see what Notre Dame does, because they're in this new agreement to 29, I think it is. Mm-hmm. And so Notre Dame is going to be losing potential scheduling partners, in air quotes there. Yeah. And the weaker their schedule gets, the worse it is for them. And we're getting to an age now where no one's going to want to face anybody big out of schedule conference anymore. So I said that backwards, but I know what I meant.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and maybe we do get a Notre Dame, and then at that point we just choose one other team to come with us, like a Georgia Tech, like a Miami, if Florida State's available, or we just stick with a Notre Dame and not even worry about another one, which I don't think that'll happen. But I just think now that I know how far down the road this potentially could go, that all the stress over who's going to get what right now is almost irrelevant, because you still got the hockey states that's supposed to go to the Big Ten. You still got the heavy SEC lean for the UNC, so that's clashing. Yeah. You got the Virginia Tech. They're not going anywhere unless they go together, it sounds like. And FSU and Clemson seem like they might be further along than what we had, at least I initially thought, but they're still years away from breaking free from the conference. So, and I've always said the SEC is the Clemson school, and I think Florida State is really drawn to the national part of the Big Ten. So,
Yeah.
Well, other than that, how did you like your Gophers pickups today? You had a couple of good ones.
Yeah, I'm happy with it, especially after the year we had. So we got 3 linemen in the All-American game. Of course, we got Corey Parrish, our great safety, who's in the All-American game. It's about the best the Minnesota Golden Gophers can do. Little surprised that they did as well as they did. 35th in the country, that's pretty high for Minnesota.
Better than us.
There's a definite difference of what happened last year to this year. The NIL collective, Dinky Town Athletics, has grown a lot here at Minnesota, and it helped keep players. We were able to keep current players, and we were able to get some recruits that maybe we shouldn't have gotten before. So,
yeah,
pretty happy.
Because if you look at the 247, we've got 3 4-stars. But if you look at, I think it's Rivals, we got 6 4-stars, and some of them got different names attached to it and everything else. So it all depends on who you go by and what's your recruiting service. So to me, we got about 10 to 15 really solid football players, and that's all you can really ask for, because they'll be coached up and everything else. Not everybody is going to be the next whoever, great superstar. Some of them are going to be busts, some are going to be great. So, all right, man, I just throwing a long play out there for you. I know everybody's getting excited for a possible demise of the ACC, which
it's not
eventually might happen, right? But it's not happening anytime soon. Right now, we're in a 1-story fire out of about a potential 10-story fire.
Yeah.
So you still got a long ways to go.
You got it.
All right, man.
Appreciate
all right, man.
it.
Talk to you later.
Football.
No problem.
Mr. Terrapin. Again.
Call from
Cornelius.
I didn't catch the name. Who's calling?
Cornelius.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Cornelius. Mr. Green, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. I know that UNC is a heavy lean, and ESPN they tape the SEC network in Charlotte, but Fox also has a production center in Charlotte too. They do the NASCAR Race Hub show.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm thinking that even though you can say right now UNC is a SEC lean, don't be surprised if Fox and the Big Ten make a push for UNC, because I would say that, but to sum it up, UNC is the biggest prize.
Yes,
between both of them. So the biggest prize, and then also I think Florida State joins the Big Ten eventually. The road to get there is not going to be a smooth road.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and I think the ACC, I think that decisions that they made years ago, and I think that even though, and here's the, I think John Swarber, he did and oh, by the way, I'm in South Carolina, so basically, if now here's my opinion about Clemson. I think Clemson does go to the SEC, but I'll say this, and me being in South Carolina, who would imagine 20 years ago that Clemson would be talked about as someone moving, a school move? Because if you take the Clemson program, they've been known as Clemsoning, but for them at the point to be talked about as a serious target to move to a SEC conference, man, that if anybody told me 20 years ago that would happen, I would say you're a fool.
Yeah. Are you a Gamecock, Cornelius?
Gamecock. I'm a Gamecock fan, and I was upset that they lost this year because the game was close, the game was winnable, but I said, oh Lord.
How do you think South Carolina? First of all, would the University of South Carolina, with their leadership, would they, if Greg Sankey went to South Carolina and said, "Look, we just like he did with Texas A&M. He said, look, we really want to bring in Clemson in. We want to play some defense. We don't want the Big Ten to grab Clemson. South Carolina, would you support us getting Clemson? What do you think the leadership of South Carolina? Do you think they would support Greg Sankey on that? And what do you think about the fan base? How would they feel about Clemson becoming an SEC school?
I think at first they would kind of balk at it, but then I think as far as with Greg Sankey, with his here's the thing about I applaud Greg Sankey because he's a great one of the best commissioners out there. I think that they will let Clemson, think South Carolina, they will allow Clemson to come in, and then also because I know that my time is getting short, and then also I think the fan bases, they would be excited about it. It would be awkward, but now by the time it was over 60 years, I think close to 60 years ago, they were both at the ACC, but South Carolina left.
Yes.
And went into football and took the other sports out of basketball too. I think the Metro Conference one, but that's my opinion. But I think that South Carolina Clemson and like I said, that it won't be a smooth road for that either. But I think that they'll eventually be conference mates once again.
Yeah. All right. Beautiful. Thanks for the call, Cornelius. Please call again.
No problem. Be blessed now.
All right.
Will do.
I need you to call again. I need that South Carolina perception into the PATC community, okay?
Will do.
Appreciate it, Mr. Green.
Right.
Praise the Lord,
no
sir.
Problem.
Thank you.
Praise the Lord.
Got it. I love it. I love Cornelius Green, an old-time PATC member. Appreciate his call. Hopefully he calls a whole bunch more times. We need that South Carolina, really need that South Carolina perception of how things are going on right now. Okay. The lines are open, 763-260-1333. Again, there's a lot of new stuff in this article. One is, of course, the private equity firm was named. I know it was named in past articles, but in this one, it was named solo, right?
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole is on the line. This article, there's some meat on this bone. A lot of new information. Florida State is on the road with this private equity firm. I think there's a mutual interest to the point where I think something's going to get done. What do you think, sir? What's on your mind?
I 100% agree, and I don't think FSU has any interest in slow walking this. They have every intention in being out by 2025. They have every intention of being in a new conference in 2025 if it's up to them. It might be 2026. I seriously doubt it's going to be 2027 or 2028. There is still a cloud hanging over the university. The playoff snub has had some lingering effects. One of them is recruiting. By all standards, we had a great recruiting class.
Oh yeah.
What did we sign?
Yeah.
14 or 15 4-stars, but we missed out on 2 and upwards of 4 or 5 5-stars. And there was one that he flipped at the last minute, and it is what it is. But you start finding out, sir.
Bolden, safety.
Bolden, yes, sir.
Yeah.
But we find out later on he quietly flipped 3 weeks ago. Well, what happened 3 weeks ago? We got, Jeremiah Smith. There was a lot of drama at the end of the day today with Miami and Ohio State.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith, as of a week ago, was coming to FSU.
Ooh.
Now, Ohio State was still the lean, but it had gotten to where the recruiting services were favoring him to flip to FSU by 60%. But between him, L.J. McCray, Bolden, the ACC, being in the ACC conference is killing us. And after everybody was signed today, and we should be happy. You know, we got the number 3 quarterback in the class. We got the number 3 running back in the class. I mean, we got most of the wide receivers we have are all 4 stars or high 4 stars. We've got a lot of guys that were either 5-star before or just really high 4 stars. Plus, we have, I think, what did we have? 3 or 4 of the top DBs in the class. Like, out of the top 10, I think we either had 3 or 4 of them. Of DBs in the class as far as their rankings. So we should be really thankful, and we are. But the point is, it's already starting to affect us. We had 2 to 3 guys drop 3 weeks after we got snubbed. What's going to happen next year, the year after, and the year after? And that's just after 3 weeks. You're seeing the panic from all the ACC teams.
Yeah.
They're understanding that we're depreciating not by the year. All the universities are almost depreciating by the week or by the month.
Yeah.
You know, and that may be an exaggeration, but I don't know. I mean, it just seems like it has accelerated ever since that. I mean, the realization has set into all the ACC schools. I mean, have you heard kind of that same theme being circulated behind the scenes?
Yeah. The ACC took another hit this year. All I can do is sort of. The best way I can answer that question is to reiterate what we've been reporting the last week on Clemson being really, really active. I think Clemson saw what happened. I think they know they're in trouble. I think the quicker they can get out, the better. I think Clemson's going to be following Florida State as there isn't going to be much space, much air between Florida State and Clemson. That's what we truly believe, and I think Clemson is panicking more than anybody else is at this point.
Well, the thing is, and this might sound really arrogant to a lot of college football fans, we're happy to be top 10 teams. And granted, we had a 5-year slump. We get it. We had a 5-year slump. We get it. We've come out of that. We don't want to slide back again. We were close to competing for the number 1 spot in the recruiting class. That's how you win national championships. FSU wants to be in the business of competing for the playoff and competing for national championships every single year. And now a glass ceiling has just been put over the top of our heads. You know, the recruiting analysts for FSU and from the different sites, 247, On3, whatever, at the end of the day, once all the class was signed, acknowledged, this is killing them. The negative recruiting over the last year or two, but especially the last 3 weeks, is just killing them. And you got to get out. There's nothing you could do. You can't stay. And I'm going to try to. Well, I know you're fixing to tell me to wind this up, but
yeah.
One thing that I do want to take into consideration, I understand that yes, the ACC is going to want a significant buyout, and implosion is not likely, and whatever else. There's a domino effect to all this. With the ACC already depreciating because so much emphasis being put on the SEC, yeah. Don't be surprised. And I'm not saying the ESPN wants to get rid of the ACC or the ACC network. That's not what I'm saying. Don't be surprised that through this process and the big brands want to leave, they realize it's in their best interest to renegotiate the ACC contract. because some of those lingering schools aren't going to be worth $40 or $50 million a year. And I'm not saying that's the initial plan that ESPN's going to try to do, but through the process, they're going to realize that might be in their best interest, and that might take care of the gore anyway. But again, let's just see how it happens. I'm just thankful the process is starting, Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, and just before I let you go, just a reminder, according to what we've been told by the Florida State Money Perch, next 48 hours, I'd be keeping your head on a swivel. Check that Florida State Board of Trustees website. I think there's going to be a meeting being a meeting being dropped in. There's scheduled meeting being dropped in there pretty soon. Don't know when it's going to happen. Don't know when the meeting's going to happen. But I think they're going to drop in something here. Something's going to change on that website in the next 2 days. Just to give you a heads up.
Yes, sir.
All righty, sir.
I went looking for it a few minutes ago just to see if it came a little early. Maybe Christmas arrived a little early. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
appreciate it.
But anyway, all right. Thank you, sir.
You got a great call.
All right, thanks.
If you are new to the channel, if you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're notified. You get notifications when we come on live, because we can come on live at any time. We're doing a late night live show, PATC, but sometimes we have a breakfast show. Sometimes we have a lunch show. Sometimes we have a dinner show. Sometimes we have a double header where we're on twice in the same day because of breaking news, college football, the information we give you, breaking news on ESPN and Yahoo Sports. We break it down. We talk college football all the time. This is what we do. College football's peak around the corner. So if you like the content, please smash the like button. If you don't like the content, please smash the thumbs down and let us know in the comments section or on X, formerly known as Twitter. Go to Flag Empire. You see it on the ticker at the bottom of the screen. And tell me, DM me or put it out and open what you don't like about the channel, and we'll try to improve upon it. If you want to become an early peak member, that gives you the ability to watch early peak episodes where we drop a little bit of cloak and dagger, a little bit of information before everybody else sees it. We did it again this morning, episode 11. It didn't have to do with the ACC, didn't have to do with Florida State, did not have to do with early signing day. It had to do with another conference of information. So, if you're interested in being an early peak member, Cloak and Dagger, hit the join button. Hit the join button. And then, of course, if you're new to the channel, there's episodes that we're dropping. Everybody can watch, and we dropped episode 346 today. So if you haven't seen it, go take a look.
Call from Stacy.
Stacy, Mrs. Georgia Bulldogs is on the line. Holy smokes. Did you get the #1 recruiting class in the country today? I think you did. I'm not sure. What's going on, Stacy?
Hey, Greg. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Late night PATC. I'm glad you joined us.
I'm with it. I tell you, I love it. I'm a night owl myself, so this is great. And here on the East Coast, as you know, down south, we're an hour behind you guys, so it works for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But, yeah, to answer your question, Greg, yes, Georgia did pull in the #1 class. And I just want to take a minute and, again, you know me, Greg, I'm not an SEC homer. I just want to give a shout out to, Dog Nation, to our coach, Kirby Smart, who is just awesome. He is just killing it at Georgia. Yes, we unfortunately fell short this year by 3 measly points.
Yeah.
But you know what? I couldn't be more prouder of my school, and again, I've been a dog fan going on almost 53 years now, and I'm just so tickled pink for Kirby and all the hard work he puts in, and his coaches and his president backing him up. When he came in, it was hard replacing Mark Richt because he was such a sweetheart. And we still love Mark Richt, and sorry that, he's going through Parkinson's, and we support him in every way. But when Kirby came in, he said, no, we got to do X, Y, and Z, or we're never going to win another, championship. And the president said, you're right. He gave Kirby everything he needed, and here we are. So I just wanted to, shout out to Kirby and tell him, we trust you, Kirby, and don't listen to all the naysayers that were, oh, my goodness, what's going on with Georgia? Losing 18 players. What's going on?
Yeah.
Well, if people remember last year, Nick Saban at this time they had already lost 22 and was getting ready to lose 23 of their players. So
Correct.
Don't panic.
Yeah.
But, and I know this time is short, but I just want to reach out to JD and say, I feel for you. I watched Mike Norvell's press conference after signing day. He was seething. He was doing everything he could to remain calm, but he was almost hyperventilating, red-faced. And I think a lot was the KJ Bolden flip to Georgia. And he's just dejected. He had two players on his team that have said they were going to sit out the Orange Bowl. And I guess they're going to both go in the draft. Well, they were caught on Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, fighting one another a couple of days ago. It's all over social media. It's like they're imploding the program. They're losing control. And Warren Brenton, one of our linebackers for Georgia, who's got several good friends, starters on FSU, said that most of the, first and second and even some of the, third string starters are not playing in that game because they are so upset that they got hosed. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But then what does that say? I mean, I don't know. I feel so bad for FSU. You know that. They did get hosed. They should be in. Yeah. I don't know the answer, but I do know that they are losing hope there. And, they got to get out of the ACC. Yeah. I don't see them, hopping into the SEC. We've had this discussion before. They have been flirting back and forth to the SEC, going all the way back to 1955. And now I think this is the last straw. I think that is irreversible. It's just broken. It's just not going to work. So, but, some of your callers hit on it. How is this going to work, Greg? You know as well as I do, the wheels of justice, basically take forever. They're not going to be able to hop, out of the ACC. I'm guessing probably not for another 2-3 years. I mean, what do you think?
Well, we think now, of course, there's a lot of different variables to this, but we think they'll find their way out in 3 years. So they'll be in a different conference by 2027. But it's a huge mountain to climb. It's gonna take a lot of money, we think.
Yeah.
This thing can go in so many different ways. There's so many different angles to it. There's so many different. I'm not trying to cop out on anything. All I can do is lay the groundwork, the landscape, and how it's formed right now, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of it. But we cannot, there's so many different things that relationships are important when it comes to realignment. Of course, the relationship between FSU and SEC is very cold right now on ESPN. But then again, SEC probably has the inside track on eating at the ACC table, first, second, third, fourth. There's so much that goes involved in all of this, Stacy. But
yep.
I think the days of believing that the ACC was only going to fall apart in 2034, 2035, 2036, that's just not going to happen. One of the big events that happened was when the Pac-12 imploded and they did not backfill, and everybody went off in different directions in Washington State and Oregon State, truly are not really considered at this point an autonomy schools. Those ACC schools that are not going to be going to the SEC, they're not going to be going to the Big Ten. They know neither place is going to be for them. Those ACC schools, I got to be looking at Washington State and Oregon State and saying, we don't want to become them. We want to make sure we keep an autonomy force status. So maybe we should secure the ACC now, get security now for the long term, and make a deal with Florida State, North Carolina, and a few other schools. That's what we think is going to happen.
Well, some of the sports writers who have been in the SEC
and Stacey,
for like,
I'm going to give you one more minute because we're just cutting our calls short tonight.
Okay. Basically, some sports writers who've been in the SEC said that Greg Sankey's good with 16. He's got his heels kicked back, smoking a stogie. However, he did say, little birdie's been chirping, saying he would make an exception if he could get his number one choice is North Carolina. They fear NC State would be a package deal. He's okay with that, but definitely North Carolina, NC State, or a Duke. And then they said, and then maybe reluctantly Notre Dame. And I'm like, please, dear gosh, no Notre Dame. They could stay independent forever for all I care. But definitely Stacey, they said NC State and North Carolina are the two that Greg Sankey would be willing to bring into the fold to get into that, market. And the last I just want to leave with JD, tell him, be grateful that he is not the Florida Gators. They had the number 3 recruiting class today. They slid to number 10, and now they're at 16 and still falling.
Okay.
So, tell JD, keep it,
we'll let JD know. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Love you, Greg. Love your show. Love your viewers. And go Dogs.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stacey. Georgia Bulldogs, Stacey. All right, beautiful call by Stacey once again. Awesome clips. Louisville Cardinal. Hey, Greg, if you set your live shows up at Premier 10, 20, 30 minutes prior to streaming, you can skew the algorithms a bit to get more engagement. Thank you. Awesome clips. I don't know. The problem is I never really know exactly when I'm going to come on live. That's the problem. I'm working this. I'm doing other stuff. I got obligations, many different obligations. So I don't, when I set, so I don't know. I don't know. But thank you for the super chat, for the suggestion. I appreciate it. Awesome clips. Appreciate your continued generosity to this channel. Thank you, Mr. Louisville Cardinal. I don't know. All I can say right now to the PATC community, keep your head on a swivel. We can be coming up live at any time. And follow us at Twitter, at X, at Flug Empire, because we do give people a little bit of a heads up on that as well. I want to thank you. We're going to close this live show up. I can tell we're not getting any real new viewers in, so we're going to close this up. I want to thank you for joining us here for the late night PATC. Pete Thamel, ESPN, incredible phone calls throughout the night, great comments. Thank you for the wonderful, generous donations, and for the new early peak members. Thank you so very much. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. We're going to keep giving you the peek before anyone else gets it. The peek around the corner when it comes to the Holy Smokes Theater. We're going to be talking bowl games, playoffs. Holy smokes. A lot is going down in college football. This story, nothing is imminent right now when it comes to ACC implosion. But the first quarter of 2024, and we've been telling you this for 359 days, first quarter 2024, we're going to get the next chapter in the story. There's going to be some declaration by Florida State. And we think here at Peek Around the Corner that Clemson will be soon to follow. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so